God reveals himself to individuals, yet he does it in different ways. In Exodus chapter 3, we see that an angel appeared in a burning bush to Moses. And then it says that the Lord spoke to Moses from that burning bush. Now, let's look at the passage that's identified in your bulletin this morning from Exodus 33. Again, it's an encounter between Moses and God. Then Moses said to God, "Now show me your glory." And the Lord said, "I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for no one can see me and live." Then the Lord said, "There is a place near me where you can stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." Moses wants to see God, but God says to Moses, "No one can see my face." God does indicate that he can be seen or experienced in three ways. First of all, he told Moses, "You can see my goodness." In other words, God will make his character known. We can see God's goodness. He makes himself known through who he is and what he does. He says that he would let his name be proclaimed. God said that his name would be proclaimed and that Moses would recognize that name. God indicated that he would be involved in the lives of the people. He would show compassion to whom he would show compassion, and he would have mercy on those he would show mercy. However, he says no one is to see his face. Well, what God looks like may not be as important as who he is. Verse 23 says that God will allow Moses to see his backside. Remember the story of Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19. The Lord said to go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. And so as Elijah went out, it says that there was a strong wind, but the Lord wasn't in it. There was an earthquake, but the Lord wasn't in it. There was a fire, but the Lord wasn't in it. And then there was a still small voice. There was a whisper, and Elijah recognized that God was in the midst of that still small voice. Elijah might have expected that God would be in the earthquake, that God would have been in the wind, that God would have been in the fire. But when Elijah encountered God in that still small voice, he knew who it was. God reveals himself to us in a variety of different ways. And in each instant, he makes it clear that it is him who is present with us. In Isaiah 6, the prophet Isaiah said that he saw the Lord seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. There are times in the Bible when God is described in human terms. Never is he completely described as human, but there are human characteristics that are used to explain or describe God. In Exodus 7:5, it indicates that God has a hand. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. In Numbers 6, it says that God has a face. The Lord bless and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. In Psalm 33:6, it says that God has a mouth to breathe from. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, their starry hosts by the breath of his mouth. Psalm 34:15 talks about his eyes and ears. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. Psalm 89:10 describes God with a strong arm. With your strong arm, you scattered your enemies. Now, even though there are some human features or characteristics by which God is described, God is also described in other ways. In Psalm 57, it refers to God as having wings. In Revelation 5:6, it seems to be describing God as having 7 horns on his head. I believe that these human characteristics help us to maybe understand something about God. But the purpose of these are not to somehow be able to draw a picture or a portrait of God, but rather they are to understand who He is. These characteristics can sometimes cause us to put God in a box, can sometimes limit who He is and how it is that He wants to work in our lives. Well, I believe that there is only one way that we can know what God looks like. And that is by looking at His Son, Jesus. In John chapter 14, beginning with verse 8, Jesus is talking to His disciples, and Philip said to Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Jesus answered, "Don't you know me, Philip? Even after I've been among you such a long time? Everyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you are not just my own. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing His work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Or at least believe on the evidence of the miracles themselves." If you want to know who God the Father is, then get to know His Son, Jesus. It's through the character of Jesus that we can learn more about the character of God the Father.